Welcome back, dear listeners, to another stirring deep dive here on Medium Rare.
Hello, everyone.
For those of you drawn to the subtle currents and the profound possibilities beyond the veil, today's exploration is absolutely designed for you.
It really is.
We're embarking on a journey into the heart of spiritual exploration, right from the comfort of your own home, guided by a text that, well, really aimed to democratize spiritual connection.
Indeed. And our guide for this remarkable journey is the timeless wisdom of Reverend Franklin A. Thomas. He was a spiritual pioneer, and his foundational work, How to Hold Circles for Developing Mediumship at Home, it offers a remarkably clear and practical pathway for anyone seeking to connect with the unseen.
That's right. It was originally published way back in 1916, updated in 1920, and his guide is described quite boldly, actually, as worded so plainly that anyone reading it can understand the secrets of life.
Quite a claim. But, Reverend Thomas himself, he was deeply immersed in this world. A staunch spiritualist, a lecturer, a practicing medium, a healer, a teacher.
And a prolific writer for over 20 years. He really poured his energy into promoting what he saw as spiritual truth, and this guide, it definitely reflects that dedication.
Absolutely. So our mission today is essentially to distill the essence of Reverend Thomas's instructions. We want to provide you with a clear, step-by-step framework for establishing and developing your own mediumistic circles, or even, a solo practice straight from his teachings.
And he really challenges that old notion, doesn't he, that mediumship is some rare, elusive gift.
Totally. He asserts instead that it's a natural ability inherent in every single individual, much like how Mr. Watt harnessed steam or Mr. Morse harnessed electricity.
Right, they didn't invent those forces.
Exactly. They just figured out how to utilize something that was already there all along. Reverend Thomas argues our innate mediumistic abilities are no different, just waiting to be developed.
It's a pretty radical idea, really, a democratization of spiritual power. He's basically saying this isn't just for a select few mystics, but a dormant capacity within everyone.
It is, and the profound insight that underpins his entire system, what he actually calls the key to unlocking all mediumistic abilities and inviting, well, countless blessings into your life. It comes down to one fundamental practice.
Concentration.
Concentration. He states it quite definitively. Anyone can learn to concentrate. It's this disciplined focus that serves as the literal key, the access point to opening that door.
Okay, so let's unpack how he advises us to approach this, starting with the really practical stuff, like setting the stage for spirit communication right there in your own home.
All right, so the very first practical step, according to Reverend Thomas, is thinking carefully about who you'll be sitting with. Or, maybe even more importantly, if you'll sit with anyone at all.
Yeah, he states you should sit alone or with your friends. Seems simple enough on the surface.
But then he immediately adds this crucial caveat, something that's absolutely vital for development and, honestly, something many people might overlook.
What's the catch?
He says, and I'm quoting here, "Unless you have a congenial circle of friends with whom to sit, we should advise you to sit alone."
Congenial. So not just people you like, but people who are truly in harmony with the purpose.
Exactly. This isn't just about avoiding awkward silences or, personality clashes like at a dinner party. It's profoundly about energetic harmony.
Okay.
Reverend Thomas understood that spiritual work is super sensitive. If your friends are easily distracted or maybe lack serious intent or just aren't really in sync with the spiritual work, then sitting alone is actually far more beneficial for your development.
That makes sense. Protect your own energy first.
Right. And the sources really hammer this home. You should read and practice each lesson thoroughly by yourself before you even think about forming a class. Build your own energetic strength first.
Got it. Individual foundation first. But let's say you do find that rare gem a genuinely congenial class. What are the advantages then? Why bother with a group?
Well, the benefits can be significant. Reverend Thomas observes that a harmonious group, a congenial class, can generate more power.
More power, like collective energy.
Precisely. And stronger manifestations. This collective energy actually makes individual concentration easier for everyone involved. It's almost like the combined focus creates a stronger field, a more potent atmosphere for spirits to work within. It amplifies the whole experience.
Okay, collective intention, creating a stronger conduit, I can see that. But if you do form a class, he's pretty strict about maintaining those conditions, isn't he?
Oh, very firm.
Yeah.
He lays down a non-negotiable rule once a class is organized. You not take any new members or allow anyone in the room except the class, period.
Wow, that's strict. No observers, no late additions. Why such a hard line?
It's all about keeping that energetic space pure and undisturbed. Think of it like creating a very precise, sensitive laboratory environment. Any new, unknown energy, even just a casual observer popping in, could disrupt the delicate balance the established sitters have built up over time. It creates this, energetic container, a sacred space that, in his view, is absolutely vital for sensitive spiritual work. Minimize interference. Let the subtle energies coalesce.
That's a fascinating way to think about the unseen mechanics. So, okay, you've decided on your sitters, or maybe you're going solo. The next critical step is crafting your sacred space, the physical environment itself. What does Reverend Thomas say about the room?
Rule number 1, whether you're alone or in a group, the room absolutely must be quiet.
Quiet.
Makes sense. And this isn't just about blocking out, the traffic outside or the TV downstairs. It's about fostering an inner stillness that external quiet helps facilitate.
Connecting the outer and inner environment.
Exactly. He even advises when you're sitting at home just concentrating, you should not speak too loudly. It's all about cultivating this atmosphere of peace and receptivity both outside you and inside you.
Understood. And for the actual setup, particularly in groups, what's the recommendation? Is there a specific type of table or arrangement?
His primary instruction for groups is to sit around a plain board table.
Plain board table, okay.
And everyone's hands should be resting easily on it. He's quite specific here. Remove all articles from it. Clear the decks.
So no crystals, no candles, no notes. Just a bare table.
Just a bare, plain table. Ensure a clear, undisturbed surface for the energy to flow. It's not just about tidiness. It's about decluttering that physical space to allow for clearer spiritual connection, removing anything that might hold or maybe dissipate energy unnecessarily.
A clean slate, literally. Okay, but what if you don't have a plain board table? Or any table? Is the whole thing off?
Not at all, which shows how practical he was trying to be. If a table isn't available, he says you should simply sit with your hands in your lap.
Oh, okay. How should the hands be?
Palms facing upwards, and your feet should be flat on the floor. The key thing is comfort and maintaining an open, receptive posture.
And posture itself seems like a big deal in his instructions. Whether you're at a table or not, what's the ideal physical stance?
You should always sit up erect in your chair and elevate your head a little.
Sit up straight, head slightly elevated. Why is that important?
Well, this posture isn't just about looking alert or formal. In his view, it plays a role in creating that clear channel. It helps align your physical body in a way that allows for optimal energetic flow and receptivity.
So it's not just about what's in the room, but also how you are in the room. Makes sense. And I guess personal comfort ties into that too.
Oh, hugely important. Crucial, actually. Reverend Thomas points out that if your clothing is too tight or you're just not sitting comfortably, maybe your chair is awful, then you cannot easily relax.
And relaxation is key.
Absolutely fundamental. Relaxation, both bodily and mentally, is crucial for mediumistic development. He even kind of likens it to falling asleep. You need to be able to fully relax your conscious mind and body to become receptive to impressions from the spiritual realm. Any physical tension can just create a block.
Right. Got it. Now, this is where things get really interesting because the lighting conditions for your sitting, they actually depend entirely on what kind of mediumship you're hoping to develop. Reverend Thomas is super specific here. Can you break down the difference between mental phases and physical phases and how light factors in?
Yeah, this is a pivotal distinction in his system. It's really important. For developing what he calls mental phases of mediumship, and that includes things like clairvoyance, which is seeing spirits or spiritual scenes.
Right, clear seeing.
Clairaudience, which is hearing spiritual voices or sounds.
Clear hearing.
And clairsentience, which is feeling impressions or sensing spiritual presence.
Clear feeling or sensing.
For those mental phases, you must always sit in the light. Always. And he says you should never turn the light out.
Never turn it out for mental development. Why?
Well, the rationale, according to Reverend Thomas, is that sitting in the light helps to integrate these spiritual perceptions into your normal waking consciousness.
Yeah.
He states quite clearly that you will develop and see in the light. It's about blending the spiritual experience with your everyday perception, not making it something weird that only happens in the dark.
That's a really key insight. So spiritual perception isn't necessarily some spooky hidden thing. But then for developing the physical phases, things like spirits speaking through a trumpet or actual materialization or even slate writing.
Yeah, the more tangible stuff.
Conditions shift dramatically.
They'll absolutely do. Complete opposite, really. For these more tangible manifestations, after an initial period of concentration in the light, which in the later lessons, He typically advises should be about 15 minutes.
Okay, starting the light.
Then you turn out all the lights, make the room as dark as you can.
As dark as possible, pitch black.
As close as you can get. This complete darkness is considered essential for what he calls physical mediumship.
And why the darkness for physical phenomena?
He states it simply makes it easier for the spirits to give physical manifestation. The idea is that darkness conserves or allows for the accumulation of the subtle energies, or perhaps the ectoplasm they believe spirits use to manifest physically.
Okay. But here's a really crucial warning Reverend Thomas issues about this darkness. It sounds quite serious.
It is. He warns very strongly. Do not allow anyone to make the room suddenly light.
Suddenly light, like flipping a switch or opening a door.
Exactly. He warns that doing so can severely injure the medium. And not just spiritually, potentially physically. And it can set back the manifestations for months.
Wow, months.
Yeah. He even recounts cases where a sudden flashlight, someone checking things out, almost caused a medium to pass out, like faint or worse, right when a spirit was trying to materialize. It highlights just how sensitive and maybe delicate these physical processes were considered.
That's a serious warning. So darkness is key for physical, light for mental.
Got it.
Now, beyond the room and the light, your body itself is the channel. What about posture and hand placement specifically for energy flow?
Right. Hands should always be resting easily, whether on the table or if you're not using a table, in the lap with palms up. Easy, relaxed.
And he makes a point about not tensing the fingers.
Yeah, very important instruction. Never force your fingers out straight. Don't hold them rigidly. That prevents relaxation and what he calls passivity, that receptive state. Instead, just keep your hands relaxed.
Makes sense. Tension blocks flow. And if you're using a table,
ensure your arms are far enough on the table so that when they relax, they will be resting easily. Again, it's about comfort and ensuring an unobstructed flow, preventing any subconscious tension from blocking those subtle energies.
Okay. And the palms up position, it's not just about relaxation.
No, he notes it can actually allow you to feel something, a cool sensation at the ends of your fingers and in the palms of your hands.
This cool sensation, what does that mean?
He describes it as a good indication of energy flow, maybe the spirit energy interacting with your own, something you wouldn't feel if your hands were, say, clasped or palms down.
Interesting. And there's even a detail about the table itself, connecting with the wood.
Yeah, it's a fascinating little detail. He mentions that by putting your hands on the table, you draw something from wood that you could not get if you had your hands on your lap.
Draw something from wood, like an earth energy.
He doesn't specify exactly, but it suggests a unique energetic synergy with natural materials like wood, perhaps helping ground the energy or providing some kind of supportive resonance. It's quite intriguing.
Okay, so you've got your space meticulously set up, the lighting's right for your purpose, your posture is aligned. Now the real work begins. Concentration. Reverend Thomas outlines the very first step in lesson number 1. What is it?
It starts very simply, but powerfully. Once you're seated and comfortable, you close your eyes and you repeat aloud, just in a moderate tone, the words, good spirits.
Good spirits, out loud.
Out loud, yes. And just for 1 minute to start. That's it. 1 minute.
It sounds almost too simple, like easing into a new exercise, really small steps.
Exactly. And this initial oral repetition, it serves a couple of key purposes. First, it obviously assists concentration, right, when you're starting out. It helps focus your mind, which tends to wander, onto a single, clear intention.
Is the mind something to hold on to?
Right. But maybe more importantly, from Reverend Thomas's perspective, by actively saying good spirits, you are consciously attracting to you good spirits.
Like an invitation.
A direct vocal invitation. And he believed these good spirits would then impress you to do good the same as they did while they were living.
Impress you, meaning influence your thoughts or feelings, give you nudges.
Exactly. Subtle influence, internal guidance. So it's a conscious invocation, asking for benevolent influences to come into your space and, well, guide you.
Okay. And if you're doing this in a class setting?
The person in charge, the leader, should keep time with a watch. Then, at the end of that minute, the leader concludes by saying aloud, welcome, good spirits, welcome, good spirits, welcome.
And everyone repeats it together.
Everyone follows along, repeating it at the same time. It creates this really powerful collective intention, amplifying the energy and reinforcing that welcome.
All right. But this isn't just a one-off exercise, right? He lays out a whole progression.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's crucial to understand this isn't a one-and-done thing. Reverend Thomas lays out a very clear incremental journey, a progressive path through stages of concentration, specifically designed to systematically build your spiritual muscle, your focus.
Okay, so let's break down these stages. Stage 1, that's the commencement learning to focus from lesson number 1. After that first 1-minute concentration, what happens next?
Okay, so after the initial minute, you take a moment. If you're in a group, you might share any quick impressions. Then you concentrate again, this time for 2 minutes.
Doubling it.
Doubling it.
Yeah.
And you repeat this 2-minute concentration 3 times within that first session.
3 times 2 minutes. Got it.
Then, for the remainder of that first hour-long sitting, you progress to concentrating for 3 minutes at a time.
Okay, so it's all about consistent incremental progression, slowly extending that period of focused attention, building stamina.
Exactly. And even in these very, very early stages, maybe the first or second class meeting while you're concentrating and repeating good spirits, Reverend Thomas prepares you for what you might experience.
What should you expect?
He says you should begin to see mists or cobwebs, or maybe a form of something that passes in front of you.
Mists or cobwebs. That sounds subtle.
It is. But he confirms this is always the first and best indication that some spirit is trying to manifest. It's the initial visual sign. You might also, he notes, hear your first raps during this time.
Raps. Okay. We'll talk more about those later. But seeing mists or forms, that sounds like it could be a bit startling for a beginner. Does he offer any reassurance?
He does, and it's incredibly powerful reassurance, really vital for anyone starting this path. He says quite bluntly, do not be afraid.
Easier said than done, maybe.
Perhaps, but listen to his reasoning. It is the living that will harm you, not the dead.
Interesting perspective.
And he strongly advises that you should always welcome what you see. Don't push it away out of fear. Because these fleeting visions, these mists, they are the early positive signs that spiritual manifestations are indeed beginning to unfold for you. Welcoming them removes the fear that often blocks further progress.
Okay, so acceptance is key. Don't freak out, basically. And I imagine as you move into stage 2, developing deeper perception, which covers lessons number 2 and 3, these experiences start to become more distinct.
Precisely. The concentration duration increases again. You start the sitting concentrating for 3 minutes, then you progress to 4 minutes, then 5 minutes per period of concentration within the hour.
Gradually longer holds.
Yes, and then lesson number 3 pushes it further, increasing the concentration time to 7 minutes for the rest of the hour.
7 minutes. That's starting to feel substantial.
It is, and as you progress through these lessons, he notes that you should expect changed conditions at every class. It's a natural evolution. Your perception should sharpen.
So what kind of changes? What might you see instead of just mists?
You'll begin to see more plainly. He says, instead of seeing mists and the like, you will see spirits around every person and around yourself.
Seeing spirits around people. Wow.
You might even start to see more recognizable forms, maybe a hand, arm, or head, or even quite detailed scenery. He gives examples like seeing an old home or a city, a river, animals. These aren't just fleeting shadows anymore, but clearer, more distinct spiritual perceptions taking shape.
Okay, so the visuals get clearer. What about other sensations? Does he describe any physical feelings that indicate you're progressing?
Yes, quite specifically. Initially, remember that cool sensation at the ends of your fingers and in the palms of your hands, if your palms are up, that indicates energy flow.
Right, it tingles.
Later, as you progress further, you'll begin to feel different influences all around your head, face, arms, and body.
Different influences? Like what? Pressure, cold spots?
He doesn't detail the exact sensation, just influences. But he describes these as spirit forces working over your body.
Spirit forces working on you. What are they doing?
He says they are preparing your body so they can use it. It's a profound idea that your physical vessel is literally becoming more attuned, more receptive, being prepared to act as a clearer channel for spirit.
Fascinating. So the physical body is being actively prepared. It's not just about mental focus. And that brings us to stage 3, gaining mastery and control, which covers lessons number 4 through 7. This seems like where your sustained focus really solidifies. What's the goal here in terms of concentration duration?
Right. In this stage, the concentration periods continue to increase. You reach 10 minutes, and then you settle at a sustained 15 minutes at each sitting for the rest of the hour. This starts from lesson number 5 onwards.
15 minutes straight.
15 minutes of uninterrupted concentration. This is a really significant milestone in Reverend Thomas's system. It shows you've truly learned to control your mind, to hold that focus.
And he gives a very specific, almost physical indicator of achieving that level of control, doesn't he? It's not just about the clock.
He does. Achieving this 15 minutes without yawning or coughing signifies truly getting control over your mind and body.
Without yawning or coughing. Why is that so important?
Well, this control is absolutely vital because, as he explains it, yawning or coughing in a circle can inadvertently let in other spirits, maybe ones you don't necessarily want there. But with this developed self-mastery, you can consciously keep them out.
Maintain your energetic boundary.
Exactly. Reverend Thomas uses a very relatable analogy here. He likens your uncontrolled mind, the one that jumps everywhere, to a spoiled child that's always had its own way, rambles all over the place, and needs to be gently but firmly controlled through this disciplined practice. It's about training your mental faculty.
That's a perfect analogy for how easily our minds wander. So, okay, as concentration becomes easier, as you hit that 15-minute mark consistently, what deeper levels of mediumship start to become accessible?
Well, as concentration deepens and becomes, less of a struggle, many things are seen much more plainly. Spirit forces are felt working over you more intensely, more noticeably.
Okay.
And by consistently repeating good spirits aloud, your mind gets into the proper conditions so that the spirits can use it. You're creating the right mental and energetic environment.
And the potential experiences deepen significantly.
Yes. The sources even suggest you might reach a point where you will see your own spirit leave your body.
Out-of-body experience.
Kind of. He likens it to what happens during deep sleep, which leads to dreams. Or you might even enter a trance state, a deeper level of altered consciousness.
Wow.
And this sustained practice, he claims, significantly strengthens your willpower, which in turn attracts more to you, more spiritual connection, more guidance, and gives you better control over yourself and others. It's presented as a comprehensive personal transformation, not just a party trick.
Okay, so all of this incredible development, from seeing those first mists to potentially experiencing trance states, it seems to hinge entirely on two absolutely critical things: consistency and dedication. Reverend Thomas is really clear on this, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. Crystal clear. He leaves absolutely no room for doubt on this. You're meant to select some hour, day, or night for your practice.
Pick a time.
And stick to it regularly. He stresses you must always start at the same hour.
Same time, every time. Why is that so important?
It establishes a strong, energetic anchor. It signals to the spiritual realm your serious commitment, and it creates a predictable window, a kind of appointment for connection. Consistency builds momentum.
Got it. So it's not just about showing up when you feel like it, it's about showing up diligently. And he's quite stern about the actual effort required, isn't he? Almost like he knew people might just skim the book.
He certainly anticipated that. He emphasizes you need to read, study, and practice these instructions to the letter, not just casually read them.
Study and practice to the letter.
And then he delivers a very direct warning, almost a challenge. Do not expect that you will get any results or manifestations of any kind by merely glancing through the instructions. And then, because you do not see the spirits, throw it down and say, this book is no good.
Yeah, I can imagine people doing that.
Right. And he says, if you do so, you are the one that is at fault. It's a powerful call for earnest desire and consistent methodical effort. He places the responsibility squarely on you, the seeker.
It's refreshing, actually, that he's so candid about the work involved. And he also offers a rather liberating perspective on the role of belief itself, doesn't he? Which might surprise some people.
He does, and it's a crucial point for many who might struggle with doubt. He states, flat out, faith has nothing to do with your developing.
Nothing.
Nothing. This isn't about needing blind belief or some mystical conviction to get started. It's about practical application. He argues that by simply following the instructions meticulously, you will get results.
So it's more like a science experiment than a prayer meeting, in a way?
Kind of. He offers a great analogy. It's like learning a musical instrument. You practice the notes, the scales, the fingerings, regardless of whether you believe you're going to be a concert pianist on day one. The consistent practice itself brings the skill, independent of your initial faith level.
That reframes the whole approach. It takes the pressure off needing to believe and puts the focus on doing, okay? And whether you're sitting alone or in a group, what about distractions during the actual sitting time? He seems to have a very strict zero-tolerance policy.
He is uncompromising on this. If you want to talk or visit, do it before or after the class. Simple as that.
No chit-chat during the hour?
None. While in the class, pay strict attention to the leader or the inspirants. He explicitly states that those who cannot manage this, who keep chatting or getting distracted, actually hinder the other sitters.
Hinder them energetically.
Yes, and he says they had better leave the class. Harsh, maybe, but clear.
And if you're sitting alone, same principle.
Same principle applied internally. He advises, do not think about your work or business or what you are going to eat tomorrow for breakfast, but give up every other thought except good spirit.
Easier said than done.
Of course. But that's the practice. This intense mental discipline is what allows you to relax deeply, become truly passive and receptive, and open the door for those subtle spiritual impressions to come through. You have to clear the mental clutter.
This intense focus and self-discipline, it brings us back to that profound internal transformation that concentration facilitates, gaining control over your mind and your body. You mentioned his analogy of the spoiled child mind earlier. Can you expand on how this practice really tames that inner landscape?
Yeah, Reverend Thomas vividly paints the uncontrolled mind as like that spoiled child. It rambles everywhere, jumps from thought to thought, worry to worry, without any direction. It's just reacting.
Sounds familiar.
Right? Through diligent, consistent concentration on something simple like good spirits, you learn to gently rein in that mental wandering. You learn to keep the mind focused on your chosen point of attention. This process, in his view, signifies gaining real control over your mental faculties, moving beyond just being passively swept along by every fleeting thought.
So it's building mental muscle. And this mental discipline, it extends to physical control too, the yawning and coughing thing.
It does, directly. This mental discipline translates into physical control, helping you prevent those involuntary actions, like yawning or coughing during a sitting. As he warns, these seemingly harmless actions are believed to potentially let in other spirits, maybe disruptive or just unwanted ones, during a sensitive session when the energy is focused.
So by gaining control over these little physical impulses,
you can effectively keep them out if they're undesired. You maintain the integrity of your energetic space and the focus of the circle. It's about conscious control over your whole being.
it really seems like this mastery of mind and body is the absolute key to becoming truly receptive. And what about willpower? How does this practice strengthen that?
Well, this mastery allows for that necessary deep relaxation of both mind and body, which is absolutely crucial for mediums to become open, receptive channels. But paradoxically, this relaxation comes from discipline. And that discipline, he claims, significantly enhances your willpower.
Stronger will. How does that help?
According to Reverend Thomas, stronger willpower attracts more to you, more spiritual connection, more positive influences. And it also gives you better control over yourself and others. Not in a manipulative way, but in terms of self-possession and positive influence. It's presented at a holistic empowerment, internal discipline, leading to greater external effectiveness and deeper spiritual connection.
And this all loops back beautifully to a core philosophical point Reverend Thomas makes, a really profound insight into how our internal state shapes our external reality. Our lives are as we think. Can you delve a bit deeper into this fundamental principle? It seems huge.
It is huge. It's possibly one of his most profound and actionable insights. Reverend Thomas teaches, quite simply, that thoughts are things.
Not just ideas, but actual things.
Yes. This isn't just a nice spiritual saying for him. He presents it as the fundamental operating system of your reality. He asserts that thoughts literally have bodies, breath, and wings. They're endowed with vital force, and they possess their own unique color and vibration.
Wow. Thoughts with bodies and breath.
That's his description. He views them as, quite literally, the architects of our reality. They shape not only our character and our destiny, but also, critically, the very types of spirits that are attracted to us.
So our thoughts act like magnets for spirits.
In his view, yes. He breaks down the chain reaction. If you allow a particular thought, it leads to an act. Repeated acts become a habit. Habit forms character, and character determines destiny. So your entire being, your body, mind, and spirit, is, in his framework, a direct reflection of your past thoughts. This radically shifts personal responsibility away from external forces and places it squarely on your internal state, your thinking.
Okay, so as you diligently practice concentration, follow the steps, and cultivate the specific internal and external environment, Reverend Thomas gives some pretty clear expectations for your first encounters with spirit manifestation. What can a beginner realistically expect to see? Or maybe, more accurately, how will they see it?
Right. As we touched on earlier, beginners should typically expect to see those mists or cobwebs, or perhaps a form of something that passes in front of you. Very subtle, initially.
The mists and cobwebs again?
Yes. And he stresses this is always the first and best indication that some spirit is trying to manifest. But he also lays down a really foundational concept for how we actually perceive spirits, which is vital for understanding the whole process. He states very clearly, you will never see a spirit with material eyes.
Not with your physical eye.
No, he says you will see spirits only with the spirit eyes.
The spirit eye. So an inner vision, like in your mind's eye, but more vivid.
Exactly. It's an internal spiritual perception, not something your physical eyeballs are observing in the same way you see, the chair across the room.
Okay, that clarifies a really common misconception that you're literally seeing ghosts with your eyeballs. But then there's that fascinating exception he mentions, materialization. How does that fit in if we only see with spirit eyes?
It's a crucial distinction, and it highlights the difference between spirit and its manifestation. If a spirit is able to draw enough energy from the medium, from the sitters, from the environment, to actually materialize into a temporary physical form,
Like become solid or semi-solid.
yes, tangible, then and only then, he says, can you see that physical form with your natural material eyes?
Ah, okay, so you see the form, not the spirit itself.
Precisely. Reverend Thomas clarifies, then you do not see the spirit, only the material form it assumes. The spirit itself remains unseen by the physical eye, but its temporary physical vehicle, the materialization, becomes visible to ordinary sight.
That makes sense. So as development progresses, say by lesson number 3, do these visions seen with the spirit eye become clearer, more distinct than just mists?
Absolutely. The progression continues. Instead of just mists, you'll begin to, as he puts it, see spirits around every person and around yourself.
Seeing spirits around everyone, like auras or actual figures.
He implies figures, or at least clearer forms. You might start to recognize specific shapes, like a hand, arm, or head, or even quite detailed scenery. Remember the examples he gave. An old home, a city, a river, mountains, buildings, even steamboats or animals.
Wow, complex visions.
Yes. These are no longer just fleeting shadows, but clearer, more distinct spiritual perceptions forming within your spirit eye, your inner vision.
And he adds that fascinating detail about how spirits appear clothed.
He does. He notes that spirits appear clothed in spiritual clothing, often with the same color or shade of clothing it used to wear while living.
Why?
Well, his reasoning is quite straightforward. People here on Earth do not appear in the nude, neither do they in the spirit world. They present themselves as they were known, or perhaps as they see themselves, reinforcing their individuality and making them recognizable.
Okay, makes sense. Now, beyond visual cues, auditory cues, specifically raps, are a really common and often early form of communication in mediumistic circles. Reverend Thomas provides a clear code, a language for them. Can you explain that?
Yes, he provides a very simple, almost binary system for communication using raps.
Yeah.
It's quite direct. 1 rap means no.
1 rap, no.
2 raps mean don't know.
2 raps, don't know. Okay.
And 3 raps mean yes.
3 raps, yes. Simple. No, don't know, yes.
Exactly. It provides a clear, basic method for spirits to answer direct, yes-no type questions, offering immediate feedback and helping to build a foundation of trust and communication.
And what about more detailed communication? Like if you want to know who is rapping, how can you use raps to get a name?
For more complex information, like identifying an unseen spirit, you can use the alphabet method. You slowly call out the letters of the alphabet, A, B, C.
Out loud.
Out loud, yes. And the spirit will hopefully rap when you reach the correct letter.
Okay, so if the name is Anne, they rap at A, then what?
Then you start again from the beginning of the alphabet for the next letter. So you go back to A, B, C, all the way to N, and they rap again. Then back to A, B, C to the second N, and they rap again.
It sounds painstaking.
It can be meticulous, yes, but it's an effective way to get specific information, like names or short messages, spelled out directly from an unseen presence when other forms of communication aren't yet developed.
Okay. And he notes that raps can happen in daylight, but they're usually stronger in the dark.
Correct. Darkness seems to amplify many phenomena for him. And importantly, he states that everyone in the class should be able to hear the raps, suggesting they are objective, audible sounds within the room, not just subjective internal experiences.
Right, indicating their tangible nature. Now, let's shift back to developing those physical phases of mediumship, the really tangible manifestations. We know they require darkness.
Yes, as dark as you can possibly make the room. This profound darkness is considered critical for spirits to draw or manipulate the energy needed for these more concrete physical effects.
And for more advanced physical development, he even mentions the use of a cabinet. What exactly is that, and what are the protocols around it, especially if you're inviting friends to witness?
Right. A medium developing physical phenomena might use a cabinet. It's typically a structure, maybe fixed in a corner or freestanding, often enclosed with black cloth to create maximum darkness inside. It essentially creates an even more concentrated energetic space, within the dark room.
Like a focal point for the energy.
Exactly. And if you're inviting friends to participate in a session involving a cabinet, Reverend Thomas stresses it's vital to always allow examination of the cabinet by anyone who wishes to before you turn out the light.
Why? To prove there are no tricks.
Precisely. It's about transparency, building trust, and dispelling skepticism right from the outset. The medium then typically sits inside the cabinet on a chair, while the room itself is dimly lit, or ideally completely dark.
Okay. And during these dark physical sessions, what is the group, the sitters, doing?
During these group sessions focused on physical phenomena, the friends or sitters often join in by singing songs, usually in a mild, gentle tone. Hymns were common.
Singing. Why singing?
Singing is thought to help raise and harmonize the energy in the room, creating a supportive atmosphere. It also helps keep the sitters focused and prevents idle chatter. Meanwhile, the medium inside the cabinet concentrates mentally, not aloud, directing your energy towards facilitating the manifestation.
Got it. So, in this carefully controlled, darkened environment, what kinds of tangible effects might sitters expect to experience? What are the classic physical manifestations?
Well, in the dark, spirits can potentially produce a whole range of tangible effects. This is when you might experience much stronger raps than those heard in the light. You might witness the materialization of forms, hands, faces, even full figures. Objects like trumpets or tambourines might move or levitate seemingly on their own.
Spirit trumpets.
Yes, lightweight cones often used for spirits to amplify their voices. You might also get writing appearing on a slate, seemingly without human touch. These are concrete, often verifiable manifestations of a spiritual presence interacting with the physical world.
Okay. And for the sitters who are observing this maybe startling phenomena, what are they advised to do? Just sit there quietly.
Not necessarily quietly. Sitters in darkened sessions are advised to keep your eyes open and watchful. Pay attention. And crucially, you should speak of whatever is seen, no matter how minor or fleeting it seems.
Speak about it out loud during the darkness.
Yes. Announce what you're perceiving. I see a light, or I feel a touch, and continue singing gently. Reverend Thomas has an interesting point here. Sitters should also try to be receptive, as they might be impressed by the spirits as to what to do next. So the spirits themselves might guide the session's flow and direct the participants.
Wow, so it's interactive. But there's another crucial safety warning, isn't there? Particularly if a materialized spirit actually shows itself and asks for recognition.
Yes, a very important one. You must do not allow anyone to touch or try to catch the spirit. Absolutely forbidden.
Don't grab the ghost.
Basically, yes. He advises that if the spirit is strong enough and wants interaction, it will come out further, maybe speak on its own. Trying to touch or restrain a materialization is considered potentially harmful to both the medium, whose energy is involved, and the fragile manifestation itself. Respect the phenomenon.
Got it. So we've covered setting the stage, the step-by-step concentration path, and what initial experiences might look like. But Reverend Thomas emphasizes a core principle about how you actually develop these abilities that goes beyond just passively receiving. He states quite clearly, the only way you will ever see or develop is by giving out what you receive. What does he mean by this imperative to give out?
This is a really fundamental principle in his system, and it reinforces the active role of the seeker in their own development. It's not just about sitting there hoping something happens to you.
Okay, so what does giving out involve?
He means that after each period of concentration, whether you're sitting solo or in a group, you, or the leader in a group, should take a moment to share. The leader asks everyone, what did you see? Any impressions received? Any raps heard? And you must speak of your perceptions.
Even if it sounds silly, even the mists and cobwebs.
Especially then. Even if they seem foolish or of no direct value, he insists. Speaking them out, acknowledging them, he says, may open the way so that you can see greater things. It's like an act of energetic acknowledgement and release. Voicing the impression clears the channel, confirms the connection, and in his view, creates space for further, stronger development to occur.
So holding back actually hinders your progress.
That's exactly his point, and he takes this very seriously. He even goes so far as to suggest consequences for those who are consistently unwilling to share their experiences in a group setting.
What does he say?
He's quite direct. If you're not willing to share what you perceive, you are advised to simply leave the class. This practice of sharing is considered absolutely fundamental to progressive development in his method. It reinforces the energetic exchange, helps solidify the connection for the individual, validates the experience, and clears the path for more profound encounters. Silence, in this context, can be a roadblock.
Okay, so as you embark on this journey, start having experiences and practice sharing them, the issue of discernment becomes absolutely critical. It's not just about seeing spirits, but knowing who or what you're connecting with. Reverend Thomas profoundly teaches that thoughts are things. We touched on this earlier as a core principle for attracting spirits. Can you elaborate on how this idea empowers us to navigate the spirit world safely?
Yeah, this concept is really central to his entire philosophy of safe and productive spiritual engagement. When Reverend Thomas asserts that thoughts are things, he means they aren't just fleeting, intangible impulses in your head. He genuinely believes they have substance, bodies, breath, and wings, as he puts it.
Wow, that vivid description again.
Right. He believed they are endowed with vital force and possess their own unique color and vibration. He views them as the literal architects of our reality. They shape our character, our destiny, and critically for this discussion, the very types of spirits that are attracted to us. In his view, your entire being, your body, mind, and spirit is a direct reflection of your past thoughts.
That's a huge weight of responsibility. So if our thoughts are that powerful, that tangible, can we actually change them? And by changing them, change our spiritual interactions?
Absolutely. And this is the empowering part of his message. He states quite clearly, we can and have a right to change our entire being by changing our thoughts right now and thus become better men and women.
We have the right to change our thoughts.
Yes, it places the responsibility but also the power squarely on our shoulders. It emphasizes personal agency in shaping not just our lives, but our spiritual environment too. You're not just a passive receiver of whatever comes along.
And this concept directly influences the types of spirits attracted to us, doesn't it? It's not just random chance who shows up.
No, not at all in his view. As we think so are the spirits attracted to us. It's a direct correlation. If you consistently cultivate positive thoughts, like focusing on good spirits, you actively attract benevolent influences who, as he says, will impress you to do good to be better.
And the flip side.
Conversely, if your mind dwells on negative, fearful, or harmful thoughts, you risk attracting what he calls vampire spirits, or other entities resonating with those lower vibrations. It's like you're putting out a specific energetic beacon, a frequency, and you draw in corresponding energies from the spiritual realm, good or bad.
He uses a wonderful analogy to make this point really practical about attracting the right spirits, the clean house analogy.
Yes, it's a great one. He says if you live in a nice clean house and you decide to move, you'll naturally look for another clean house. Or if you invite a dear friend over, you make sure the place is tidy and welcoming.
Right, common courtesy.
Similarly, he advises that you must prepare yourself mentally, emotionally, physically to properly receive good spirits. You need to keep the door of your soul open and clean, metaphorically speaking. You must strive to think the very best thoughts and lead good lives if you want good spirits to feel comfortable and willing to use your body or mind as a channel for communication or manifestation. It's about creating an inviting and harmonious inner dwelling for positive guests.
Okay, so cultivating the right internal environment is step one for discernment. Building on that, Reverend Thomas gives very specific guidance on actively selecting your spiritual allies, your spirit guides. He says you have the right to choose your guide, just like you choose friends here on Earth. What's the main purpose of having a dedicated spirit guide in his system?
The primary purpose, as he sees it, is to get acquainted with the spirits that are specifically attuned to you, your control, as he sometimes calls them, because he says you can have your control with you all the time and be happy all through life. It's about establishing a consistent, supportive, guiding presence that can assist you continually, not just during sittings.
A personal spiritual support team? And the method for calling on them once you've chosen one is incredibly precise. It's not just a general wish.
No, it's very specific, almost like dialing a unique phone number. Once you've selected a spirit you feel drawn to, or perhaps one that has been suggested through mediumship, you call on them by their full name, first name, middle initial if known, and surname.
The full name?
Yes, and you repeat it over and over for the full 15 minutes of your concentration period at each sitting. For example, Mrs. May M. Jones, my spirit guide, come and manifest thyself to me, I pray thee. Something like that.
Why such specificity? Why the full name?
Well, as Reverend Thomas Riley points out, there are more than one Mrs. Jones in the spirit world. The exact full name acts as a precise spiritual address, ensuring you're directing your call to the specific individual you intend to connect with.
Okay. And how might you expect this chosen guide to appear when you first start calling on them like this?
He suggests you'll soon begin to see them when you call, typically in their spirit form, especially if you never knew them in physical life. They usually won't appear materially, at least not initially. You might also get impressions, he says, about the conditions they lived under, whether they're sad or happy, giving you a deeper sense of their personality and experiences.
And once you feel you've established that connection, he encourages direct communication, like just talking to them.
Yes, absolutely. He advises, talk to your spirit guides the same as you would a person. Be direct. Tell them the kind of life you aspire to live, the help you're seeking, and state that you're willing for them to lead and impress you, provided their guidance feels right and true, if they impress you correctly. It's about establishing a clear, conscious, working relationship based on mutual understanding and shared intentions.
He also advises choosing a guide who perhaps followed your preferred phase of mediumship when they were on Earth.
None.
What's the thinking behind that, matching specialties?
Exactly. He suggests this because their spirit, having experience in that area, will likely impress you more strongly and effectively in that particular line of development. So if you're aiming to develop a healing mediumship, choosing a guide who is known as a healer makes sense. If you're focused on clairvoyance, maybe a guide who was an artist or had strong visual perception. It aligns your energetic vibration and learning curve with a compatible guide.
Makes sense. And it's interesting, he also mentions that spirits themselves progress, just like we do. The sources say you can actually teach them what you want them to do. What does that imply?
It implies a fascinating concept of co-development, doesn't it? A mutual growth and learning process. Your guide helps you, but your intentions and focus can also help your guide refine their ability to communicate and assist through you. It speaks to a dynamic, ongoing relationship, not a static hierarchy.
Very cool. However, he gives a really vital piece of practical advice for discernment when choosing guides. Avoid picking famous historical figures, like don't try to call on George Washington as your personal guide. Why not?
His reasoning is quite logical. Reverend Thomas explains that the same spirit cannot be in New York and California at the same moment, especially if multiple mediums across the world are all trying to call on that same famous figure simultaneously.
So Washington can't be everyone's guide at once.
Logically, no. He believed attempting this disrupts your development because you're unlikely to connect with the actual famous spirit. Instead, you might attract lesser, maybe even mischievous spirits who are simply mimicking the famous one, leading to unhelpful or potentially misleading guidance. Stick to less universally famous figures, perhaps ancestors or those known personally.
Okay, that makes practical sense. Now here's where the rubber really meets the road in terms of maintaining your spiritual safety and autonomy. Reverend Thomas issues a very stark warning. Do not allow every spirit that comes along to entrance you because it may want to. Just because a spirit can influence you doesn't mean you should let it. He emphasizes that you should know who the spirit is before you allow it to throw this conditioned trance over you. What exactly does he mean by the risk of losing your own individuality?
This is a critical safety point, maybe one of the most important. Losing your own individuality refers to the very real risk, in his view, of relinquishing your personal control, your sense of self, your identity, if you allow an unknown or potentially undesirable spirit to entrance you without proper discernment.
Becoming overshadowed or controlled.
Exactly. He warns that not all spirits have perfect knowledge, and not all will impress you for good. He states bluntly, there are selfish spirits, the same as selfish mortals. Some might even try to encourage bad habits or lead you astray.
So skepticism is healthy even toward spirits.
Discernment is crucial. But here's the empowering part. He says that by refusing to do wrong, by holding firm to your own moral compass even when influenced, you can actually help to reform that spirit. Your strength can have a positive impact on them too. But the key is maintaining your own judgment and refusing to blindly accept any influence.
So it's about knowing their character, their intention, and specifically in the context of trance, that deep altered state, how does this caution apply?
Well, regarding trance, he acknowledges that a spirit might need to entrance you for a while before it can use you effectively, meaning bring you into that state of deep receptivity necessary for certain types of mediumship, like direct voice or deep trance communication. But he crucially adds, if you are not entranced, they cannot use you in that way.
So you hold the key. You have to consent.
Precisely. This emphasizes the profound need to know and trust the spirit before you consciously allow a trance state. It reinforces that all control ultimately rests with you, the medium. You must give permission, consciously or unconsciously. Don't give it lightly or to just anyone who shows up.
And it's always important to remember, as he states quite plainly, that no one, whether on earth or in the spirit world, has perfect knowledge. No spirit knows everything.
Right. So don't treat their advice as infallible gospel. Use your own reason. And crucially, he adds, you should never ask spirits to help you do anything wrong or harmful. This sets a clear ethical boundary for the seeker. Don't try to use spiritual connection for unethical ends.
Okay. Now, Reverend Thomas makes an interesting observation, one that definitely reflects the cultural context and understanding of his time in early 20th century America. He notes that about the first impression or spirit you will see will be an Indian. He seems to expect this. Why?
Yes, he does state that. And he offers his specific reasoning for this common initial experience from his perspective at the time. He believed that Indians lived nearer to nature's laws than the white men, and that they were taught to believe that when they die, they go to a happy hunting ground, right here on this earth.
So, in his view, their spiritual beliefs kept them closer to the earthly plane after death, making them more readily perceivable, especially to beginners.
That seems to be his interpretation, yes. Their perceived closeness to nature and the earthly spirit realm made it easier in his framework for their spirits to show themselves or impress a developing medium first.
And he also highlights specific qualities he associated with these Native American guides.
He does. He notes that their spirits always give us great strength and that they make good guides, especially for those who follow spiritual healing. So for individuals on a healing path, he suggested that connecting with a Native American spirit guide might prove to be a particularly powerful and complementary alliance early in their development, based on his observations and the beliefs of his time.
Okay, so beyond developing general mediumship like clairvoyance or communication, Reverend Thomas dedicates a whole specific lesson, lesson number 7, to spiritual healing. This outlines a specialized application using the same core principles. How does the practice shift for healing?
The core concentration method is largely the same, but the focus of the mantra changes. Instead of repeating good spirits for spiritual healing, you repeat the phrase perfect health at each sitting, again for that 15-minute duration.
Perfect health. So you're focusing the intention specifically on well-being.
Exactly. And just like with the good spirits concentration, at the close of each 15-minute segment of repeating perfect health, everyone in the circle should join the leader in saying aloud, "Welcome, perfect health," repeated 3 times.
Welcome perfect health, reinforcing that healing intention collectively.
Precisely. It's about saturating the consciousness and the environment with a vibration of health.
And the philosophy behind this, it sounds simple but quite profound. It ties right back to that thoughts are things principle, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. He states it very clearly. What you have in your mind is in your entire body.
Mind-body connection, writ large.
Exactly. So if your mind is consistently focused on and filled with the idea, the feeling, the reality of perfect health,
Then that state permeates your whole being.
that's the idea. When perfect health has possession of you, as he puts it, it leaves no place for sickness. This internal state of perfect health is considered so potent, so real energetically, that it can even be passed to others simply by touch, flowing from your hands into their system. It's conceived as an actual energetic transmission of well-being.
Wow. But before you start trying to heal others, Reverend Thomas offers a very strong imperative, almost a prerequisite for any aspiring healer. It echoes a well-known adage.
Yes, the classic, physician, heal thyself. He strongly advises you must get perfect health within yourself before you attempt to treat others. He's quite blunt. If you are sick, you are in no condition to treat anyone.
You can't give what you don't have, essentially.
That's the core idea. You need to be a living example of the health and wholeness you wish to transmit. Your own channel needs to be clear and vibrant. He says, practice what you preach. Treat and cure yourself before you try to cure others.
And this self-healing, this self-preparation, it includes more than just being free of physical symptoms, doesn't it?
Oh yes, it's holistic. It includes having a pure breath, which might imply healthy lungs, but also perhaps avoiding things like smoking and a clean body, suggesting good hygiene and maybe diet, but just as importantly, a clean mind, free from negative thoughts and filled with that perfect health consciousness. This total package makes you a clear, unpolluted channel for the good spirits, the healing energies to work through.
Okay. He also explains a fascinating connection between our thoughts and physical pain and how spiritual healing can directly address it. How does that work in his view?
He postulates that often when you experience pain, it's partly because you're thinking about the pain, focusing on it, which reinforces its presence and intensity in your awareness.
The focus magnifies it.
Right. So by consciously removing that thought of pain and actively replacing it with the thought, the affirmation of perfect health, you can actually alleviate the pain, sometimes quite rapidly. Furthermore, he claims that with your developed spiritual eye, your inner vision.
The same one used for seeing spirits.
Yes. You should eventually be able to see the cause of that pain and just where it is within the body. And then your spirit guides should be able to tell you just what to do, perhaps guide your hands, suggest remedies, or direct healing energy to address the root cause.
That's incredible. So combining inner vision with guided action. From a more practical physical perspective, what does he say about the cause of much pain?
He offers a very practical observation. Nearly all pain, he suggests, is caused by contracting muscles somewhere in the body. This contraction hinders proper blood circulation to the area, leading to discomfort or pain.
Muscle tension causing pain. Makes sense. So the solution
Is often quite simple. Massaging and gently moving the affected parts can help relax those muscles, stimulate blood circulation, and thereby relieve the pain. It's a blend of spiritual intention and practical, common-sense physical understanding of the body's mechanics.
And he even provides a very specific hands-on exercise for headaches.
He does. A simple technique you can try right now if you have a headache. He instructs, place one hand on the forehead and the other hand on the back of the head. Squeeze hard for a moment, then repeat the squeeze with hands on each side of the head, pressing inwards. Do this 2 or 3 times.
Squeezing the head.
Gently but firmly, yes. He claims this simple maneuver can often cure headaches immediately, unless, of course, the headache is a symptom of some other underlying ailment. He also adds that as your healing abilities develop, you will naturally be impressed by spirit, meaning receive intuitive guidance on how to treat various other conditions you encounter.
Okay. But alongside these techniques, he includes a crucial word of caution for all healers, one that emphasizes responsibility and ethical boundaries, even within this spiritual framework.
Absolutely. It's very important. He warns explicitly, never take a contagious or dangerous case without first consulting a physician.
Work with doctors, not against them.
Yes. He stresses you should always use judgment, never do anything in violation of the law. This is about responsible and ethical practice. Blend your spiritual understanding and healing abilities with common sense, medical knowledge where appropriate, and always adhere to legal requirements regarding healthcare practice in your area.
Don't claim to cure serious diseases without medical backup or diagnosis.
Exactly. Use wisdom and integrity. And, in line with all his other teachings about attracting good spirits and maintaining a clear channel, he emphasizes personal integrity as the absolute foundation for a healer's effectiveness and safety.
What does he say about that?
He concludes the healing lesson with this powerful advice. Live such a life every day that you can stand up and look everyone in the face and tell them what you are, without cause for shame.
Live with integrity.
Yes, this ensures you remain a pure and potent channel for spiritual healing. Your personal integrity, your character, directly influences the quality of the energies you attract and are able to transmit. Be the clear vessel. #tag outro.
Wow. Okay. What an incredibly detailed and really practical deep dive we've had into Reverend Franklin A. Thomas's guide for developing mediumship at home. It's quite something.
It really is comprehensive, isn't it?
Totally. From that critical choice of your circle or, the equally powerful decision to sit alone, to meticulously setting up your sacred space, understanding those progressive stages of concentration.
Yeah, building that focus muscle step by step.
Right. And then learning to discern spirit communications, those initial mists and forms, the language of raps, and even exploring that specialized path of spiritual healing. It really feels like a complete system.
It does. A system designed to empower you, the seeker, to unlock what he firmly believed were your own innate natural abilities, not something mystical or out of reach.
And at its heart, Reverend Thomas's teaching, it really all comes back to personal responsibility and self-mastery, doesn't it?
Absolutely. He reminds us that concepts like heaven and hell are only conditions of the mind, that we literally make our own heaven or hell every moment of our lives by allowing good or evil spirits to come in and impress us.
That thoughts are things idea is just so central.
It anchors everything. Your inner landscape, your very thoughts, they aren't just fleeting wisps. He saw them as powerful, tangible architects of your destiny and the spiritual energies you inevitably invite into your life.
So it's not about needing blind faith to start.
No, not at all. It's about consistent practice. It's about following each lesson to the letter, as he put it, with diligence and sincerity, aiming to become, in his words, a power for good in your generation.
A power for good. So as you, our listeners, reflect on these profound insights and the very meticulous instructions from Reverend Thomas, maybe consider this final thought from him. He states, quite radically, the great power that created us all equal. Therefore, we can all do the same if we will practice.
If we will practice.
Right. So if your thoughts indeed create your reality, and if Reverend Thomas is right that every single person has this inherent capacity for mediumship, for deeper connection, what new connection, what profound understanding, what personal transformation will you begin to cultivate in your own sacred space, perhaps starting today?